This little thing is supposed to go on your shoe and give you a bunch of information. Let's talk about it. Welcome back, I'm Dave from Chase the Summit, and today we're going to be talking about this little thing, the new COROS Pod 2. This little device is an accessory for your COROS smartwatch to give you more advanced running metrics for your running activities. Previously, COROS already had a device called the COROS Pod. It looked like this and it clipped to the back of your shorts. The new Pod 2 aims to improve on the Pod 1 in terms of both the hardware and design and the user experience and how useful this thing actually is in your daily training. In this video today, I'm going to walk through some of the new features and the hardware and design of the new Pod 2, and of course, I'll also share some of my test data that I've collected while using this thing for the past week or so in my daily runs. Now that we've talked about what this thing actually is, let's take a look at some of the hardware and what's included inside the box. I've got the Pod 2 box, and inside of it, you do get this little carrying case. I actually really like this carrying case. So inside this little carrying pouch, we've got a few things. First of all, we do have the waist clip. So this, you take your Pod 2 and you kind of stuff it inside this rubberized clip, and that goes on the back of your shorts, and we'll talk about that in a minute. On top of that, you also get two of these transparent plastic shoe clips, which again, we'll talk about in a minute. And then on the other side of the case, I've got the charger, the little charging dock, along with a USB Type-C to USB Type-A cable. The nice thing about this new COROS Pod 2 is that it's actually rechargeable, unlike the old COROS Pod, which relied on a coin cell battery that you had to replace every few months to keep it powered up. And to charge it up, you've got this included USB charging dock. The little Pod 2 kind of pops in and clips into place. You've got a USB Type-C charging port on the front here to keep it powered up. And when you're done charging, it's got a little ejection button on the back here. Once you push that, it actually pops out of place and you can put it back into use. In terms of compatibility of the Pod 2, it is compatible with all current generation COROS watches. That could be anything from the COROS Vertix, the Pace 2, the Vertix 2, the Apex, or the Apex Pro. All COROS watches are compatible with the COROS Pod 2. And it should go without saying that the COROS Pod 2 is not compatible with other brands. So you can't pair this thing to your Garmin watch or Polar watch. Let's take a closer look at the hardware here. The COROS Pod 2 is very small. And as you can see here, it's actually got a smaller footprint than the Stride Pod in its length and its width. The Pod 2 is also extremely light and only weighs 5.6 grams. So it should go without saying that you will not notice this thing on your shoe or on the back of your shorts. It's extremely light and just kind of gets out of the way. Pod 2 is also waterproof to 3 atmospheres or 30 meters, which means it could actually be submerged underwater and it should be just fine, although I don't know why you'd be running underwater, so you probably don't have to worry about that. But if you're trail running or you're running in the rain, you can wear this thing without worrying about breaking it. And the COROS Pod 2 relies on Bluetooth connectivity to communicate with your watch. Even though the sensor is super tiny, it's got a whole bunch of technology built inside of it. You've got a barometric altimeter inside here to detect elevation change. It's got a thermometer inside to pick up the temperature of your ambient environment. You've got a compass in here, an accelerometer, and a gyroscope, all within something that weighs 5.6 grams, which is really impressive. In terms of battery life, you're looking at up to 28 hours in a single activity of continuous use, or up to 50 days in standby mode. After you pair the COROS Pod 2 to your watch, for example, I've got the COROS Pace 2 here, you can wear it in 2 different locations like I said before. You can use the included clip here to put it on the back of your shorts, or you can use the included shoe clip to put it on your shoe. And depending where you wear the COROS Pod 2, it will yield different results in the metrics that it gives you, which is really interesting. To make this less complicated, COROS provided me a chart that I can show you here, and this shows you what metrics you'll actually record in the different wearing locations during different activities. This does get a little bit confusing, but generally speaking, from my use so far, it seems like when you wear the COROS Pod 2 on your shoe, it's mainly going to focus on improving your pace and distance accuracy. When you wear it on your shorts, it's going to provide more running dynamics data like your left-right balance and your stride length and your stride ratio and all of that. I think for me, in my use case, I prefer wearing it on my foot because I'm more interested in my pace and distance data rather than that other stuff, because frankly, I don't really know how to use my ground contact time or my stride ratio data. Another thing to note on this chart is those metrics that say dual next to it. What that means is that it's actually going to use sensors from your watch and from the COROS Pod 2 to provide a better picture of that metric for your activity. And looking at this chart, you will see that the COROS Pod 2 does provide a ton of metrics as compared to something like the Stride Pod or the Garmin Running Dynamics Pod. However, one thing you will notice that's kind of a big deal is that the new COROS Pod 2 no longer supports running power, while the older COROS Pod did. Running power, if you don't know, has been developed a lot lately in devices like the Apple Watch Ultra, and even some new Garmin watches have wrist-based running power as well as Polar watches and a whole bunch of other devices. The new COROS Pod 2, however, does not support running power, and this whole thing goes beyond the COROS Pod 2 itself. COROS as a company has decided to stop developing running power as a whole on their platform. They claim that it's become too confusing for users because this metric is not standardized, and every manufacturer, whether it be Apple or Garmin, Polar or COROS even, they're all doing it a little bit differently. So if you're a user of multiple devices, it's hard to really lock down what your power readings mean. Instead of relying on running power, COROS has developed a new metric called EffortPace. And EffortPace is going to be available in the COROS app, on your watch, on the website, on the COROS Training Hub. All these areas you're going to see this metric pop up. And like I said, this EffortPace rollout is global to the entire COROS platform, not just to the Pod 2 users, but for everybody who uses a COROS device. So what is EffortPace? Well, EffortPace will try to let you know how hard you're actually working on hilly terrain by translating your current speed into how fast you'd be traveling on flat terrain. For example, if you're running up a hill at a 10-minute pace, it may translate into a 7-minute pace depending on the steepness of the terrain. This new EffortPace metric is very similar to grade adjusted pace. In fact, COROS basically just renamed grade adjusted pace to EffortPace within their app and called it a new metric. However, even though EffortPace and grade adjusted pace are very similar, COROS is planning to develop EffortPace even further to incorporate more personalized data and even environmental conditions like how extreme heat or cold would affect your effort pace during your run. That's all to say, this is sort of the beginning for this metric, and it will continue to evolve over time and more features will be added. At this point, you might be freaking out if you're a COROS user and you love using running power for your training. The good news is you're not losing running power. COROS is just not going to develop it any further. So if you have a COROS watch and you're using running power, you will continue to keep running power. It's not going anywhere. It'll still be recorded. It will still show up in your app. There's just a new metric called EffortPace that you can use alongside it. Another thing to note is that COROS watches are still compatible with the Stride Pod. If you want native power support and you love running power, you can still use your Stride Pod with your COROS watch. Now that we've talked about all the new features on the Pod 2, I just want to go through an example run to show you what some of this data actually looks like. So as you can see here, I've got an example run from my COROS Pace 2 that was paired to the COROS Pod 2. So you can see in my custom chart options here, I've got running power that I can turn on, which is the red line on the graph there. And I've also got EffortPace down below here. And on top of that, I can also turn on the elevation profile to see what happened during this run. And as you can see right in the middle here, there's a big hill. And on this hill, I did a couple of intervals to run up it to see what some of this data would look like. So as you can see, as we approach the hill, I'm averaging like 241 watts and my effort pace is at 747 and my real pace is at 747. So my effort pace and my real pace were aligned because I was on pretty flat terrain. But as I start to run up this hill, you can see a couple of things. First of all, I stopped for a second at the bottom of the hill to catch my breath before I started sprinting up the hill. So that's what you're seeing here. Then as I start to move forward, you can see that my real pace is at an 833 mile, while my effort pace is at a 556 mile because my effort was much higher because I was running uphill. On top of that, we can see that my running power was 317 watts, which is much higher than running on flat terrain. Another thing that I found interesting about this graph is that if I turn on the heart rate graph on top of all this, you can see that running by heart rate is a lot different than running by running power or this new effort pace metric, because heart rate really doesn't change that rapidly. While my effort pace and running power fall off a cliff when I stop running, my heart rate stays pretty high because it takes a while to slow back down. And that's really the big advantage to training by running power or this new effort pace metric. It's because they happen instantly. It doesn't take time to ramp up and down like it would with your heart rate. Everything is just instantaneous with running power and effort pace. Another interesting test I did with the COROS Pod 2 was to pair it to the Pace 2 and go out on a trail run while also wearing the COROS Vertix 2 on my other wrist. And if you don't know, the COROS Vertix 2 has dual band multi-frequency GPS, which is kind of the gold standard, and it's super accurate. While the COROS Pace 2 has an older GPS chipset and it's not quite as accurate. It's pretty good, but it's not quite as good as the COROS Vertix 2. I came out of the woods and both watches recorded the exact same distance. I was at 5.01 miles on the COROS Vertix 2 and 5.01 miles on the COROS Pace 2. And on top of improving outdoor distance accuracy and a GPS activity, more importantly, this will improve your indoor distance accuracy when you're running on a treadmill or on an indoor track. Without the COROS Pod 2, the watch is relying on the movement of your wrist to estimate how far you're running on a treadmill or inside on a track. And generally, that's not super accurate even if you calibrate regularly. And again, because the COROS Pod 2 is going to be strapped to your foot, this will provide really accurate indoor measurements. Now that we're nearing the end of this video, what are my final thoughts about the COROS Pod 2? What do I think about it so far? Well, this is a pretty interesting device, and at $99, it's a nice upgrade for your COROS watch if you want better pace accuracy and overall distance accuracy. I do like the physical design of this thing. It looks really cool. The accessories in the box are really cool with the little case that's included. The shoe clip is a nice design and it stays on my lacings really well. I've only got a couple of complaints about the COROS Pod 2. First of all, I do like the design and how you can wear it on your waist or on your shoe for different metrics. However, it's not totally clear on what I should do. If I was like a beginner runner and I bought this thing, I don't know where I should wear it. I wish there was more advice, maybe watch feedback to let you know what you need to improve on. Maybe your form is a little bit off and it says, hey, you should wear this on your waist. I don't really know. I just wish there was more clarity on where the user should put this device to get the most out of it. The other thing I don't love about the COROS Pod 2 is the lack of support for running power. It's cool that your watch still collects running power from the wrist, but it would have been nice to see that support from this pod as well to compete more directly with something like the Stride Pod. However, I do suspect they left that out because of their affiliation with Stride now and their native support. Maybe they didn't want to step on their feet. I don't really know. It's also really weird to me that COROS is backing off of the running power thing when every other brand out there is going at it hard. You've got Garmin adding wrist-based running power to the Garmin Fenix 7. We've got Apple adding running power to the Apple Watches, but COROS is backing off of it. Kind of a weird decision, but we'll see how it plays out. Other than those two things, the COROS Pod 2 is a nice addition to your watch to get better distance and pace, and even that ambient temperature sensor built into this sensor is really nice as well because it's not affected by things like your own body heat when you wear your watch on your wrist and it screws up the thermometer on your wrist. This is on your shoe, so you get accurate temperature readouts of the ambient conditions you're running in, which is super cool to analyze after the fact. The COROS Pod 2 is not an accessory you absolutely need because you're not actually gaining a lot of metrics on top of what you already get from the watch itself, but it does make all of those metrics a lot more accurate by using the pod with the watch. So yeah, that's the lowdown on the COROS Pod 2 and my thoughts on it so far. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving me a thumbs up and subscribing down below because that really helps me out. And if you're planning on pick up a COROS Pod 2 or any COROS watch for that matter, check out the links in the description down below because those also help support my channel and they cost nothing extra to you, so you might as well use them. All right, friends, I gotta go now. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.